For years, I believed my son's death was nothing more than a tragic accident. But one ordinary afternoon, I found something hidden inside a baby blanket that changed everything. What looked like a simple piece of fabric carried the evidence of betrayal, secrets, and murder. From that moment, I realized the truth had been buried for years, and uncovering it would put me face to face with the darkest reality of my life. This is the story of how a grandmother discovered the lies that destroyed her family, and why silence was never an option. I never imagined that a simple baby blanket could change the way I saw my entire life. For years, I believed my son's death was an accident, something tragic but natural. That belief ended the day I saw my daughter-in-law Ashley dragging trash bags to the dumpster. Among them, I noticed something familiar: my granddaughter Isabella's mint green blanket, the one I had knitted with my own hands. It was crumpled, half hanging out of the bag, treated like worthless trash. I waited until Ashley went back inside. My heart was racing as I walked toward the dumpster. I opened the lid and searched through the bags until I found it. The blanket was dirty, wrinkled, and smelled faintly of perfume, but it was still intact. I held it close and drove home, unable to understand why Ashley would throw away something so precious. Inside my bedroom, I spread the blanket out on the bed. I smoothed the fabric with my hands, remembering every stitch I had made years ago. Then I felt it, a hard lump hidden in the center. It wasn't part of the stuffing. It was something else, something deliberately placed inside. My fingers traced the seam until I found a line of stitches that looked different, almost invisible, but too perfect. Someone had opened the blanket, hidden something inside, and sewn it back up carefully. I went to my drawer and pulled out my sewing scissors. My hands trembled as I began to cut the seam, thread by thread. Each snip echoed in the silence of the room. I felt like I was opening a door to something forbidden. Finally, the seam gave way. I reached inside and pulled out a small, black cell phone. It was old, maybe 4 or 5 years out of use. I stared at it, frozen. Why would Ashley hide a phone inside Isabella's blanket? Why throw it away now, after years of keeping it hidden? I searched my drawer again and found an old charger. I plugged it in. The seconds felt endless as I waited for the screen to light up. My breathing was shallow, my hands shaking. After a few minutes, the phone came alive. There was no password. The home screen opened immediately, as if someone had never expected anyone else to find it. I tapped the gallery icon. The first photo appeared. Ashley, smiling in a restaurant, sitting beside a man I didn't recognize. He had his arm around her shoulders, kissing her cheek. The date on the photo was 4 years ago, when Matthew was still alive. I swiped through more photos: Ashley and the same man on a beach, in a hotel, in a car, hugging, kissing, laughing, all taken years ago. My son had loved her, trusted her, and she had betrayed him. I closed the gallery and opened the Messages app. Conversations with a contact saved only as H appeared. At first, the messages were romantic. Ashley wrote about how much she loved him, how she hated pretending with Matthew. But then the tone shifted. She complained that Matthew would never agree to a divorce, that he was too traditional. And then I saw the words that made my blood run cold. There has to be another way. I can't keep going like this. I need him to disappear. I dropped the phone on the bed. My heart stopped for a moment. I picked it up again. Scrolling further, Ashley's lover replied, telling her not to say crazy things. But Ashley insisted. Matthew is the problem. If he weren't here, we'd be free. The messages ended abruptly a week before Matthew's death. My mind raced. Had it really been an accident, or had Ashley planned something darker? I checked the Notes app. There was only one entry, written 2 days before Matthew's death. Tuesday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he will be alone. Everything has to look natural, an accident no one can suspect. My legs gave out. I sat on the bed, staring at the phone. My son hadn't died in an accident. He had been murdered, and Ashley, the woman he trusted, had been part of it. I thought the blanket was just a memory of my granddaughter, but inside it was the evidence of betrayal and murder. And this was only the beginning of what I was about to uncover. The phone in my hands felt heavier than anything I had ever held. The words on its screen echoed in my mind. He will be alone. Everything has to look natural. An accident no one can suspect. I could no longer believe that my son's death was a tragic fall. It was something else, something planned. Memories of that day came rushing back. It was September, a Tuesday afternoon. I had received a call from Ashley, crying and screaming that Matthew had fallen down the stairs. She said he had hit his head and wasn't responding. I drove to the hospital like a man possessed, my hands gripping the steering wheel until they hurt. When I arrived, Ashley was sitting in the waiting area, her face buried in her hands. She wore a pearl gray dress, and I noticed faint blood stains on the sleeves. She ran toward me, hugged me, and sobbed against my shoulder. I wanted only one thing: to see my son. A doctor appeared, his expression heavy with the kind of news no one wants to deliver. He told me Matthew had died from severe head trauma. They couldn't save him. My world collapsed in that moment. Ashley held me, whispering that Matthew would have wanted us to be strong, but nothing felt strong. Nothing felt real. Matthew had been my only child. My husband had died years earlier, and Matthew was all I had left. He was a doctor, brilliant and dedicated, spending long hours saving lives. He had married Ashley 2 years before his death. She was a nurse, and they had met at the hospital. I remembered the day Matthew introduced her to me. She wore a cream-colored dress, her smile perfect, almost too perfect. Matthew's eyes shone when he looked at her. He told me she was the woman of his life. A year later, Ashley became pregnant. Matthew was overjoyed. He called me every day to share updates. They bought a new house, painted the nursery soft pink, and Matthew himself assembled the crib. When Isabella was born, I felt life had given me a second chance. She was delicate, with Matthew's dark eyes. I knitted her a mint green blanket, stitch by stitch, pouring my love into it. Matthew adored that blanket. He said it was magical, that Isabella stopped crying whenever she was wrapped in it. But after Matthew's death, everything changed. Ashley grew distant. At first, I thought it was grief. She had lost her husband, too. But as months passed, she brought Isabella to see me less and less. She always had excuses: work, illness, or simply no reply to my calls. When she did allow me to see Isabella, I noticed her coldness. Her gaze no longer carried warmth. There was something calculating in her eyes. I tried to be patient, to give her space, but deep down I felt something was wrong. That suspicion grew stronger the day I saw her throw Isabella's blanket into the dumpster. That blanket was more than fabric. It was a symbol of Matthew's love, of our family. And now I knew it was also a hiding place of secrets. The phone revealed Ashley's betrayal. The photos showed her affair. The messages showed her desperation. And the note showed her plan. My son's death was not an accident. It was murder. I sat in my room staring at the phone, my mind racing. If Ashley had hidden this phone, what else was she hiding? Who was the man in the photos? Who was H in the messages? And why had she decided to throw the blanket away now, after years of keeping it? I realized I couldn't face this alone. I needed someone I could trust, someone who would believe me. My neighbor Gloria came to mind. She had been my confidant for years. She would know how to listen. She would help me decide what to do next. I thought I had uncovered enough, but the phone was only the first piece of evidence. Soon, I would discover that Ashley's lies went deeper than I could ever imagine. The phone had already shown me more than I could bear, but I knew I had to keep looking. If Ashley had hidden it so carefully, then whatever was inside was meant to stay secret. I opened the gallery again, scrolling through the photos. Each image was another betrayal. Ashley with the same man, smiling, holding hands, kissing. These were not just casual pictures. They were proof of a relationship that had existed while Matthew was still alive. I moved to the videos folder. My hands trembled as I tapped the first file. The screen showed Ashley's living room, the same place where Matthew had supposedly fallen down the stairs. The camera was fixed, resting on a piece of furniture. Ashley entered with the man from the photos. They laughed, embraced, and collapsed onto the sofa. The scene was clear, too clear. I stopped the video, unable to watch more, but I knew what it meant. Ashley had been living a double life inside the same house where Matthew had trusted her completely. I opened the Messages app again. The conversations with H revealed even more. At first, they were romantic, filled with declarations of love. Ashley wrote that she hated pretending with Matthew, that she wanted freedom. But then the words grew darker. She complained that Matthew would never agree to a divorce. She said she couldn't wait any longer. And then came the chilling line, "Matthew is the problem. If he weren't here, we'd be free." The man tried to calm her, telling her not to say such things, but Ashley kept pushing. She wrote about talking to someone who could help, someone who could make Matthew disappear. The messages ended a week before Matthew's death. It was no coincidence. I checked the Notes app again, staring at the single entry. Tuesday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He will be alone. Everything has to look natural, an accident. No one can suspect. The words were simple, but their meaning was devastating. My son's death had been planned. I walked around the room, trying to process it all. Ashley had betrayed Matthew with another man. She had written about wanting him gone. She had even made notes about staging an accident. And now, years later, she had tried to throw away the phone that held all the evidence. I sat back down, staring at the blanket spread across the bed. It had once been a symbol of love, a gift from me to Isabella. Now it was a hiding place for secrets, a silent witness to betrayal and murder. Questions filled my mind. Who was the man in the photos? Who was H? Why had Ashley decided to throw the blanket away now? And most importantly, how could I prove all of this? The phone was evidence, but would anyone believe me if I said I found it sewn inside a blanket? I knew I couldn't face this alone. I needed someone I trusted, someone who would listen without judgment. My neighbor, Gloria, came to mind. She had been my confidant for years, always ready to help. If anyone could understand the weight of what I had discovered, it was her. I picked up the phone again, scrolling through the photos one more time. Ashley's smile looked different now. It wasn't the smile of a grieving widow. It was the smile of someone who had hidden the truth for years. I thought I had seen enough, but the phone still held more secrets, and soon I would discover that Ashley's betrayal was only the beginning of a much darker plan. Ashley's distance after Matthew's death had always troubled me, but now, with the phone in my hands, her behavior made sense. She wasn't just grieving. She was hiding. The excuses she gave for keeping Isabella away, the coldness in her eyes, the way she avoided conversations about Matthew, all of it pointed to something darker. I remembered the months after the funeral. At first, I tried to be patient. Ashley had lost her husband too. She needed time. But as weeks turned into months, she grew more distant. She stopped answering my calls, delayed visits, and when she did allow me to see Isabella, her warmth was gone. She spoke less, avoided eye contact, and seemed restless. I thought grief had changed her, but now I realized it was guilt. The day I saw her throw Isabella's blanket into the dumpster was the turning point. That blanket had been Matthew's treasure, a symbol of love and family. Ashley's violent way of discarding it showed hatred, not sorrow. And inside that blanket, I had found the phone that revealed everything. I sat in my room, staring at the evidence. Ashley had betrayed Matthew with another man. She had written about wanting him gone. She had planned an accident. And now, years later, she had tried to erase the proof. But why now? Why throw the phone away after keeping it hidden for so long? I thought about Isabella. She was innocent, unaware of the darkness surrounding her. She was the only piece of Matthew left in this world, but she was living under Ashley's care in the same house where Matthew had died. The thought made my chest tighten. I knew I couldn't carry this burden alone. I needed someone I trusted, someone who would believe me. My neighbor Gloria came to mind. She had been my confidant for years, always ready to listen. If anyone could help me decide what to do, it was her. I picked up the phone and dialed her number. She answered, her voice sleepy. "Are you okay? It's early." I told her I needed her to come immediately. She didn't hesitate. 15 minutes later, she was at my door. I let her in and led her to my bedroom. The blanket lay spread across the bed, the phone still charging. I explained everything, how I had seen Ashley throw the blanket away, how I had rescued it, how I had found the hidden phone, and what I had discovered inside. Gloria listened silently, her expression shifting from surprise to horror. When she finished, she picked up the phone and checked the photos, the videos, the messages, and the note. Her hands shook as she scrolled. Finally, she looked at me, her eyes wide. "This is evidence of murder." I nodded. "I know, but how can I go to the police with this? How do I explain that I found it inside a blanket? They'll think I'm imagining things." Gloria thought for a moment. "We need more proof. If Ashley hid this phone, maybe she has other things hidden. What if we check her social media? Maybe the man in the photos appears there." It was a good idea. I opened my laptop and searched Ashley's profile. It wasn't locked. Her photos, posts, and friends were all visible. I filtered the list for names starting with H. Several appeared: Henry, Harold, Hugh, Horace, Herbert. I opened each profile, searching for the face I had seen in the photos. And then I found him. Hugh Miller. The same man, the same dark eyes, the same smile. He was the one Ashley had betrayed Matthew with. He was the one she had planned everything with. I had finally put a name to the man in the photos. But discovering who he was would only lead me deeper into a web of lies, money, and secrets that Ashley had carefully built. Finding Hugh Miller's profile confirmed what the photos and messages had already suggested. He was the man Ashley had been with, the man she had planned everything alongside. His face matched perfectly with the images stored on the hidden phone. Now, the betrayal had a name. Gloria leaned closer to the laptop screen. "That's him," she whispered, "the same man from the videos." I nodded, my stomach tightening. Hugh Miller, 38 years old, working in construction, living in the same city. On the surface, he looked ordinary, but behind that ordinary life was a connection to Matthew's death. We scrolled through his public posts. There were pictures of him with friends, at work sites, at casual gatherings, but there were no recent photos with Ashley. It was as if they had erased all traces of their relationship. That silence spoke louder than words. They had hidden their connection deliberately. Gloria turned to me. If Ashley hid the phone, maybe she has other evidence hidden too. What if we go to her house? You could distract her while I look around. The idea was risky, but it made sense. Ashley had already proven she was capable of lies. If she had hidden one phone, there could be more. I hesitated. She won't let me in easily. She always has excuses. Gloria thought for a moment. What if you ask to see Isabella? She can't refuse forever. While you're with her, I'll find a way to look around. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was all we had. I sent Ashley a message asking if I could visit Isabella. As expected, she replied with excuses. Isabella was cranky, she said. Maybe another day. I pressed harder, telling her I had bought a gift and wanted to give it in person. After a long pause, she agreed. 30 minutes only. That afternoon, Gloria and I drove to Ashley's house. It was the same house where Matthew had died, the same stairs where he had supposedly fallen. My heart pounded as I rang the doorbell. Ashley opened the door, dressed neatly, her smile cold. She let me in, carrying Isabella down from her room. My granddaughter had grown so much. Her dark eyes reminded me of Matthew, and holding her filled me with both love and sorrow. Ashley stood by the window, distracted, checking her phone. I sent a quick message to Gloria, telling her to come in. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. Ashley frowned, surprised. Gloria appeared, smiling politely, asking to use the restroom. Ashley hesitated, then allowed her in. I kept Ashley busy with small talk, asking about work, about Isabella, about Matthew's old photos. Each time I mentioned Matthew, her expression hardened. She grew restless, glancing toward the hallway where Gloria had gone. I tried to keep her attention, but she was suspicious. Finally, Gloria returned, her face calm, but her eyes telling me she had found something. She touched my shoulder lightly, the signal that it was time to leave. I kissed Isabella's forehead, promising to visit again soon. Ashley escorted us out, closing the door quickly behind us. In the car, Gloria opened her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. She found this hidden in her bedroom closet, she said. Inside were documents, Matthew's life insurance papers. The policy was for $500,000, and Ashley was the sole beneficiary. She had collected the money 3 months after his death. There were also bank statements showing large transfers, including one for $200,000 to Hugh Miller. My breath caught. Ashley had paid him. The connection was undeniable. I thought the hidden phone was the worst of it, but now I had proof of money, betrayal, and a plan. And yet, the envelope held one more secret that would change everything I believed about Isabella. The envelope Gloria had taken from Ashley's closet contained more than insurance papers and bank transfers. At the bottom was a birth certificate. I unfolded it carefully, expecting to see Ashley's name listed as Isabella's mother, but the document told a different story. The mother's name was not Ashley. It was Lydia Torres. I stared at the paper, confused. "Who is Lydia Torres?" I asked aloud. Gloria leaned closer, her brow furrowed. "I don't know, but according to this, she is Isabella's biological mother." The certificate showed Isabella's date of birth, and it didn't match what Ashley had told us years ago. There was a difference of 2 months. My mind raced. Ashley had announced her pregnancy. We had all seen her with a growing belly, but this certificate suggested something else. Had she faked a pregnancy? Had she taken another woman's child? Gloria pointed to the date again. "Look closely. Isabella was born earlier than Ashley claimed. This doesn't add up." I felt the room spin. If Ashley wasn't Isabella's real mother, then everything I thought I knew about my granddaughter's life was a lie. We searched online for Lydia Torres. After a few attempts, we found a local newspaper article from 4 years ago. The headline read, "Young Mother Missing. Family Asks for Help Locating Lydia Torres." There was a photo of a young woman with long hair and sad eyes. She had disappeared, leaving behind her 2-month-old baby. I whispered, "Isabella." The realization hit me like a wave. Lydia had gone missing around the time Isabella was born. Ashley had claimed the baby as her own. Gloria's voice was steady but grim. Think about it. Ashley needed a baby to complete her perfect family image with Matthew. Maybe she met Lydia. Maybe she took advantage of her, and when she no longer needed her, she made Lydia disappear. The thought chilled me. Could Ashley have harmed Lydia too? We searched further and found another article, more recent. The headline read, "Remains of Missing Young Woman Identified as Lydia Torres." Her body had been discovered in an abandoned lot outside the city. The cause of death was listed as head trauma, the same cause as Matthew's. I felt my breath catch. "Ashley killed her," I said quietly. "She killed Lydia to keep Isabella, and then she killed Matthew to take the money." Gloria placed a hand on mine. "This is too big. We can't keep this to ourselves. We need to go to the police." She was right. The phone, the insurance papers, the bank transfers, the birth certificate, the articles, all of it pointed to Ashley's guilt. She had betrayed Matthew, stolen a child, and taken lives to protect her lies. But my heart ached for Isabella. She was innocent, caught in the middle of this darkness. She wasn't Ashley's daughter, but Matthew had loved her as his own. He had cared for her, built her crib, painted her room, and cherished her. That love made her part of our family, no matter what the papers said. I looked at Gloria. "We'll go to the police, but I also need to protect Isabella. She can't stay with Ashley." Gloria nodded. "First, let's make sure the authorities believe us. We'll bring everything we have." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the table, staring at the documents spread before me. The phone, the photos, the messages, the insurance papers, the birth certificate, the articles, all of it pointed to Ashley's guilt. She had betrayed Matthew, stolen a child, and taken lives to protect her lies. But I thought I had uncovered the worst of Ashley's lies, but the truth about Isabella was only the beginning. Soon I would face the challenge of proving everything to the police and protecting my granddaughter from the woman who had destroyed us all. The evidence we had gathered was overwhelming. The phone, with its photos, videos, and messages, the insurance papers showing Ashley as the sole beneficiary, the bank transfers linking her to Hugh Miller, and now the birth certificate revealing Isabella's true mother, Lydia Torres, whose tragic disappearance had ended with her body being found years later. Every piece pointed to Ashley's guilt. Gloria and I sat at my dining table, the documents spread out before us. The weight of it all pressed down on me. Ashley had betrayed Matthew, stolen a child, and taken lives to protect her lies. I knew we couldn't keep this to ourselves any longer. It was time to go to the police. The next morning, we drove to the precinct. The building was gray and cold, its walls lined with the smell of old paper and stale coffee. A receptionist greeted us, and we explained that we had an appointment with Detective Jack Roberts. She asked us to wait in a small room. My hands clutched the envelope tightly, my heart pounding. After 15 minutes, a tall man with short hair entered. He introduced himself as Detective Roberts. His voice was calm, professional. "You said you have evidence of a crime?" I nodded and placed the envelope on the table. "2 crimes," I said firmly. "My son's death and the disappearance of a young mother named Lydia Torres, whose tragic disappearance had ended with her body being found years later." Roberts raised an eyebrow but gestured for me to continue. I explained everything: the blanket, the hidden phone, the photos, the videos, the messages, the insurance papers, the bank transfers, and the birth certificate. Gloria supported me, adding details where I faltered. The detective listened carefully, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he opened the envelope and examined the documents. He scrolled through the phone, reading the messages, watching the videos, and checking the notes. Finally, he looked up. "This is serious. If what you're saying is true, Ashley may have committed multiple crimes, but we need to verify everything." I felt a surge of relief. He wasn't dismissing us. He was taking it seriously. Roberts asked us to leave the evidence with him. He promised to begin an investigation immediately. As we left the precinct, Gloria squeezed my hand. "You did it! You told them! Now it's in their hands." But my mind was restless. Would the police act quickly enough? Would Ashley find out what we had done? And most importantly, what would happen to Isabella? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my granddaughter. She was innocent, living under Ashley's care, unaware of the darkness surrounding her. I knew the police would investigate, but I also knew Ashley was clever. She had hidden her lies for years. What if she tried to run? What if she tried to take Isabella away before the truth came out? I realized I had to be ready. I had to protect Isabella no matter what. Matthew had loved her as his own, and now it was my duty to keep her safe. I thought going to the police would bring me peace, but instead it brought new fears. Ashley was still free, and Isabella was still in her hands. The investigation had begun, but the danger was far from over. Detective Roberts had promised to begin the investigation, but I knew the process would take time. Ashley was still free, living her life as if nothing had happened, and Isabella was still in her care. That thought kept me awake at night. Gloria and I met again the next day to discuss what we should do while waiting for the police. "We've given them everything," she said. "Now it's their job." But I couldn't shake the feeling that Ashley might suspect something. She had always been sharp, always watching. If she realized we had discovered her secrets, she might act before the police could stop her. I decided to keep a closer eye on her. I checked her social media again, scrolling through her posts. Most were ordinary: photos of Isabella, updates about work, casual comments. But there was something strange. Ashley had recently deleted several older posts, ones that might have connected her to Hugh. It was as if she was cleaning her tracks. Gloria noticed it too. "She knows something," she whispered. "She's hiding more than we thought." We discussed the possibility of Ashley trying to leave town. With the insurance money already collected and her connection to Hugh exposed, she might try to escape before the police investigation caught up with her. That idea terrified me. If she ran, she would take Isabella with her. Later that week, Detective Roberts called. He confirmed that the phone and documents were being examined. He said the messages and transfers were strong leads and that Hugh Miller was already on their radar. But he warned us not to confront Ashley directly. "Let us handle it," he said firmly. "She could be dangerous." I agreed, but inside I felt restless. Waiting was unbearable. Every day Isabella spent with Ashley felt like a risk. Gloria tried to reassure me. "The police will act. They have enough to investigate. We just need patience." But patience was hard when I thought about Matthew, about Lydia, and about the lies Ashley had built. One evening, I drove past Ashley's house. The lights were on, the garden perfectly kept, the curtains drawn. Everything looked normal, too normal. I parked across the street, watching. After a few minutes, Ashley came out carrying a bag. She looked around nervously before placing it in her car. My heart raced. Was she preparing to leave? I stayed hidden, watching as she drove away. I followed at a distance.
She stopped at a small cafe, met with a man briefly, and handed him the bag. I couldn't see his face clearly, but something about his posture reminded me of Hugh. I told Gloria about it later. If she's still meeting him, then their connection isn't over, she said. That means they could be planning something else. The thought chilled me. Ashley had already proven she was capable of murder. If she felt cornered, what would she do next? I realized that the investigation was not just about uncovering the past, it was about preventing Ashley from causing more harm in the future. I thought the police investigation would bring safety, but Ashley's movements proved otherwise. She was still hiding, still plotting, and Isabella was still in her hands. The danger was far from over, and the next discovery would shake me even more.
The documents Gloria had found were more than enough to prove Ashley's greed. Matthew's life insurance policy named her as the sole beneficiary, and she had collected $500,000 only months after his death. The bank statements revealed large transfers, including one for $200,000 sent directly to Hugh Miller. That payment was undeniable proof of their connection. I sat in silence, staring at the papers. Ashley had not only betrayed Matthew, but had profited from his death. The money explained everything: the motive, the desperation, the lies. She had built her new life on the foundation of Matthew's murder. Gloria's voice broke the silence. She killed for money, and she paid Hugh to help her. This isn't just betrayal, it's a plan carried out step by step. I nodded, my mind heavy with the weight of the truth. Ashley had staged Matthew's death as an accident, collected the insurance, and rewarded her accomplice. But the deception didn't end there. The birth certificate had already shown that Isabella wasn't Ashley's child. That revelation added another layer to the lies. Ashley had stolen a baby to complete her perfect image and then eliminated anyone who stood in her way. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Ashley's actions weren't random, they were calculated. She had wanted money, freedom, and control. She had wanted Hugh. And she had been willing to sacrifice Matthew and Lydia to get it. Gloria leaned closer. We need to make sure the police see the full picture. This isn't just about Matthew's death. It's about Lydia, too. Ashley's crimes are bigger than we thought. I agreed. The evidence was strong, but it needed to be connected. The phone showed Ashley's affair and her plan. The insurance papers showed her motive. The bank transfers showed her payment to Hugh. The birth certificate and articles showed Lydia's disappearance and death. Together, they told a story of greed, betrayal, and murder. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about Isabella. She was innocent, caught in the middle of Ashley's lies. She wasn't Ashley's child, but Matthew had loved her as his own. He had cared for her, cherished her, and built a future around her. Now she was living under Ashley's care, unaware of the truth. I realized that protecting Isabella was just as important as seeking justice from Matthew and Lydia. Ashley had already proven she was capable of terrible things. If she felt cornered, what would she do next? Gloria reminded me that the police were investigating, but I knew Ashley was clever. She had hidden her lies for years. She had erased traces of her relationship with Hugh. She had staged Matthew's death. She had faked a pregnancy. She had stolen a child, and she had killed to protect it all. The thought of her walking free, raising Isabella, made my chest tighten. I couldn't let it continue. I thought the money explained everything, but the truth about Isabella and Lydia revealed a deeper darkness. Ashley's lies were bigger than I had ever imagined, and the final step would be proving it all before she could escape. The evidence was finally in the hands of the police, but my heart was still restless.
Ashley was clever, and I knew she wouldn't sit quietly if she suspected we had uncovered her secrets. Isabella was still living under her care, and that thought haunted me every moment. Detective Roberts called us back to the precinct 2 days later. He had reviewed the phone, the insurance papers, the bank transfers, and the birth certificate. His tone was serious. "This is strong evidence," he said. "We've already begun questioning Hugh Miller. He denies involvement, but the transfers tie him directly to Ashley. We're preparing to bring her in for questioning." Relief washed over me, but it was mixed with fear. If Ashley realized the police were closing in, she might try to run. Worse, she might try to take Isabella with her. I told Roberts my concern. He nodded. "We'll act quickly. We'll make sure Isabella is safe." That evening, Gloria and I sat together, waiting for news. Hours felt like days. Finally, Roberts called again. "We've taken Ashley into custody," he said. "She's being charged with conspiracy, fraud, and suspected involvement in 2 deaths. Isabella is safe. Child Services will handle her care until the court decides." I felt my chest tighten. Isabella was safe, but she was no longer in Ashley's hands. She was innocent, unaware of the lies that had surrounded her since birth. I knew she wasn't my blood granddaughter, but Matthew had loved her as his own. That love made her part of my family, no matter what the papers said. The next morning, I visited the precinct again. Roberts explained that Hugh Miller had confessed to knowing about Ashley's plan. He admitted she had spoken about making Matthew disappear, but claimed he hadn't believed she would go through with it. The bank transfers told another story. Ashley had paid him, and he had accepted. Ashley herself remained cold during questioning. She denied everything, insisting Matthew's death was an accident and Lydia's disappearance had nothing to do with her. But the phone, the documents, and Hugh's confession painted a different picture. The investigation was moving forward, and the truth was finally coming to light. I left the precinct with Gloria, my mind heavy but determined. Justice was finally within reach. Ashley's lies had been exposed, her crimes uncovered. Matthew's death would no longer be dismissed as an accident. Lydia's disappearance would no longer be forgotten. And Isabella would no longer grow up under Ashley's shadow. That night, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the blanket that had started it all. It had once been a symbol of love, a gift for my granddaughter. Now it was the key that unlocked the truth. A simple piece of fabric had carried the evidence of betrayal, greed, and murder. I thought about Matthew, about the life he had built, the love he had given, and the future he had dreamed of. He had trusted Ashley, and she had destroyed him. But now his story would be told, his truth would be known. And I thought about Isabella. She wasn't Ashley's daughter, but she was Matthew's in every way that mattered. I promised myself that I would fight for her, that I would protect her, and that I would make sure she grew up knowing the truth about her father. The blanket had revealed the lies, the phone had exposed the betrayal, and the documents had proven the crime. Ashley's world of secrets had finally collapsed. But the fight for justice and for Isabella's future was only beginning. Ashley's arrest should have brought closure, but instead it opened a new chapter filled with tension and uncertainty. The police had taken her into custody, Hugh Miller was under investigation, and Isabella was placed under Child Services for protection. Yet for me, the fight was far from over. Detective Roberts explained that the case would now move toward trial. Ashley would face charges of conspiracy, fraud, and suspected involvement in 2 deaths. Hugh's role would also be examined, and the court would decide how much responsibility he carried. The evidence we had provided, the phone, the insurance papers, the bank transfers, the birth certificate, and the articles, would all be presented before a judge. Gloria and I sat together discussing what this meant. "The trial will be long," she said.
Ashley will try to deny everything. She'll have lawyers, but the evidence is strong." I nodded, but my thoughts were on Isabella. She was innocent, caught in the middle of this storm. Child Services had placed her in temporary care, but I wanted her with me. She was Matthew's daughter in every way that mattered, and I couldn't let her grow up without knowing the truth about her father. I contacted a lawyer to begin the process of seeking custody. It wouldn't be easy. The court would need proof that I could provide a safe home, and Ashley's defense might try to claim rights over Isabella despite the birth certificate. But I was determined. Meanwhile, the police continued their investigation. They uncovered more details about Ashley's financial dealings. The insurance money had been used not only to pay Hugh, but also to cover debts and fund a lifestyle she couldn't afford before Matthew's death. She had built her comfort on betrayal. Hugh's confession added weight to the case. He admitted Ashley had spoken about making Matthew disappear. He claimed he hadn't believed she would go through with it, but the bank transfers told another story. He had accepted her money, and that tied him directly to the crime. As the trial approached, I prepared myself for the possibility of facing Ashley in court. The thought made my stomach turn. She had once been part of our family, the woman Matthew loved, the mother figure to Isabella. Now she was the person who had destroyed everything. Gloria reminded me that the trial was not just about punishment, it was about truth. Matthew's story will be told, she said. Lydia's story will be told, and Isabella will grow up knowing what really happened. I held on to that thought. Justice was not just about Ashley going to prison. It was about restoring the truth, protecting Isabella, and honoring Matthew's memory. The day before the trial, I sat alone with the blanket that had started it all. It lay folded on my lap, its mint green color faded but still strong. I thought about the moment I had pulled the phone from its seams, the moment everything had changed. That blanket had carried the evidence of betrayal, greed, and murder, but it had also carried the truth, the key to justice. I thought the hardest part was uncovering Ashley's lies, but the trial would prove even more difficult. Facing her in court meant reliving every betrayal, every loss, and every secret, and yet it was the only way to bring justice for Matthew, Lydia, and Isabella. The trial began in a crowded courtroom, the air heavy with tension. Ashley sat at the defense table, her posture straight, her expression cold. Hugh Miller was seated separately, his eyes downcast, avoiding everyone's gaze. I sat with Gloria, clutching the blanket that had started it all, determined to see justice served. The prosecutor opened with a clear statement. This case is about betrayal, greed, and murder. The evidence will show that Ashley orchestrated her husband's death, profited from his life insurance, and concealed the truth about a missing mother, Lydia Torres. His words echoed through the room, setting the tone for what was to come. Ashley's lawyer responded quickly, insisting that Matthew's death was a tragic accident. He claimed the phone was unreliable, that the photos and messages were taken out of context, and that Ashley had never intended harm. He painted her as a grieving widow, misunderstood and unfairly accused. But the evidence spoke louder than words. The prosecutor presented the phone first. The photos of Ashley with Hugh, taken while Matthew was still alive, filled the screen. The videos showed them together in Matthew's own living room. The messages revealed Ashley's desperation, her words about Matthew being the problem, and her chilling note about staging an accident. The courtroom grew silent as each piece was revealed. Ashley's lawyer tried to argue that the phone could have been tampered with, but the forensic experts confirmed its authenticity. The messages were real, the dates matched, and the device had been hidden deliberately inside Isabella's blanket. Next came the insurance papers.
The prosecutor explained how Ashley had collected $500,000 after Matthew's death and how she had transferred $200,000 to Hugh Miller. Bank records confirmed the transaction. Hugh shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his guilt written across his face. Then the birth certificate was presented. The name Lydia Torres appeared as Isabella's mother. The prosecutor connected it to the newspaper articles about Lydia's disappearance and the discovery of her remains. The cause of death, head trauma, was the same as Matthew's. The implication was clear. Ashley had stolen Lydia's child and eliminated her to protect the lie. Ashley's lawyer tried to counter, claiming the certificate was a mistake, that Lydia had been a distant relative, and that Ashley had raised Isabella out of kindness. But the timeline didn't match. The dates proved otherwise. Finally, Hugh was called to testify. His voice was shaky as he admitted Ashley had spoken about making Matthew disappear. He claimed he hadn't believed she would act, but the prosecutor pressed him about the money. Hugh admitted he had accepted the transfer, though he insisted he hadn't physically harmed Matthew. His words only deepened Ashley's guilt. Throughout the trial, Ashley remained composed, denying everything. She insisted Matthew's death was an accident, that Lydia's disappearance had nothing to do with her, and the phone was planted to frame her. But the evidence was overwhelming. I sat silently, watching as the truth unfolded. Every photo, every message, every document was a reminder of Matthew's trust and Ashley's betrayal. The courtroom was no longer just a place of law, it was the stage where Ashley's carefully built facade was collapsing. I thought the evidence alone would be enough, but Ashley's defense was relentless. The trial was far from over, and the final verdict would decide not only her fate, but Isabella's future as well.
The trial had stretched on for days, each session filled with evidence, testimony, and arguments. Finally, the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived, the verdict. The courtroom was tense, every eye fixed on the judge as he prepared to speak. Ashley sat at the defense table, her expression unreadable, while Hugh shifted nervously beside his lawyer. The judge began by summarizing the evidence. He spoke of the phone hidden inside Isabella's blanket, the photos and videos of Ashley with Hugh, the messages that revealed her desperation, and the chilling note about staging an accident. He mentioned the insurance papers, the bank transfers, and the birth certificate that exposed Lydia Torres as Isabella's real mother. He acknowledged Hugh's testimony, his admission that Ashley had spoken about making Matthew disappear, and the undeniable proof of money exchanged. Then came the words that sealed Ashley's fate. The court finds Ashley guilty of conspiracy, fraud, and involvement in the deaths of Matthew and Lydia Torres. Hugh Miller is found guilty of aiding and abetting, with financial gain tied directly to the crime. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Ashley remained still, her face pale, her eyes fixed on the floor. Hugh lowered his head, his shoulders slumping. For me, the verdict was both a relief and a heartbreak. Justice had been served, but it could never bring Matthew back. Gloria squeezed my hand. "It's over," she whispered. But I knew it wasn't truly over. Isabella's future was still uncertain. After the verdict, Child Services contacted me. They explained that Isabella would remain in temporary care until custody was decided. Ashley's rights were stripped, but the court needed to determine who would take responsibility for the child. I told them I wanted custody. Isabella was Matthew's daughter in every way that mattered, and I was her grandmother. The process was not simple. I had to prove I could provide a safe and stable home. I met with social workers, answered questions about my health, my finances, and my ability to care for a young child. Each meeting was exhausting, but I was determined. Meanwhile, Ashley was sentenced to prison.
Hugh received a shorter sentence, but his role in the crime was undeniable. The two people who had destroyed Matthew's life were finally behind bars. I visited Isabella during her time in temporary care. She ran into my arms, her dark eyes shining with innocence. She didn't understand the trial, the verdict, or the lies that had surrounded her. She only knew that I was her grandmother, and she trusted me. Holding her reminded me why I had fought so hard. Weeks later, the custody hearing took place. I stood before the judge, explaining why Isabella should be with me. I spoke of Matthew's love for her, of the home I had prepared, of the stability I could provide. The social workers supported me, confirming that I was capable of caring for her. The judge listened carefully, then delivered his decision. Custody of Isabella will be granted to her grandmother. She will be raised in a safe environment away from the influence of Ashley. Tears filled my eyes as I hugged Isabella tightly. She was finally safe. I thought the verdict would be the end, but gaining custody of Isabella was the true victory. Yet even with Ashley behind bars, the shadow of her lies lingered, and I knew healing would take time.
Life after the trial felt strangely quiet. Ashley was behind bars, Hugh had been sentenced, and Isabella was finally with me. Yet the silence carried its own weight. The lies, the betrayals, the deaths, they had left scars that would take time to heal. Isabella adjusted quickly to her new home. She filled the rooms with laughter, her small footsteps echoing through the house. She loved the garden, chasing butterflies and picking flowers. Watching her reminded me of Matthew, of the joy he had once carried. But at night, when she asked about her father, my heart ached. She was too young to understand the full truth, but I promised myself that one day, when she was ready, I would tell her everything. Gloria remained by my side, helping me rebuild the rhythm of daily life. She reminded me that healing wasn't about forgetting, it was about finding strength in the truth. Together, we created a safe space for Isabella, filled with love and stability. Still, Ashley's shadow lingered. Even in prison, her presence haunted me. I thought about the years she had spent pretending, the way she had smiled at Matthew while hiding her betrayal. I thought about Lydia Torres, the young mother whose life had been stolen, and the child she had lost. Isabella was living proof of Lydia's love, and I carried the responsibility of honoring that legacy. One evening, I sat with Isabella, the mint-green blanket folded across her lap. She traced the stitches with her fingers, unaware of the secrets it had once hidden. For her, it was simply comfort. For me, it was a reminder of everything we had survived. I began to write in a journal, recording the story from the beginning, the blanket, the phone, the discovery, the trial. I wanted Isabella to have the truth in her hands one day, not just through my words, but through a record she could read when she was older. She deserved to know about her father's love, about Lydia's sacrifice, and about the fight for justice. The community around us began to notice the change. Neighbors offered support, bringing meals, visiting, and helping with Isabella. They had watched the trial unfold in the news, shocked by Ashley's crimes. Many told me I was brave, but I didn't feel brave. I felt like a mother who had lost her son and a grandmother who had fought to protect her granddaughter. Gloria often reminded me that Matthew's spirit lived on through Isabella. She carries his eyes, his kindness, she said. Raising her is the way you keep him alive. Those words gave me strength. As weeks turned to months, the weight of the past began to lift. Isabella grew, her laughter louder, her steps stronger. She started school, made friends, and filled my days with joy. Each milestone reminded me that despite the darkness, life continued. But I knew healing was not just about moving forward, it was about remembering. Matthew's love,
Lydia's tragedy, and the blanket that had revealed the truth. They were all part of our story, and I promised myself that Isabella would grow up knowing she was loved, protected, and free from Ashley's lies. I thought the trial was the end, but healing was its own journey. Ashley's shadow lingered, yet Isabella's laughter reminded me that love could outshine even the darkest secrets. Months had passed since the trial, and life had begun to settle into a new rhythm. Ashley was serving her sentence, Hugh was behind bars, and Isabella was finally safe in my care. The storm that had consumed our lives had quieted, but the echoes of betrayal and loss still lingered. Isabella grew quickly, her laughter filling the house with light. She loved school, made friends easily, and carried a spark of kindness that reminded me of Matthew. Every time she smiled, I saw him. Every time she asked questions about the world, I heard his voice. Raising her was not just a duty, it was a way of keeping Matthew alive. Gloria remained a constant presence, helping me through the difficult days. She reminded me that healing was not about erasing the past, but about finding strength in it. Together, we created a home where Isabella could thrive, free from Ashley's lies. Still, there were moments when the weight of the past pressed down on me. At night, I sometimes dreamed of Matthew, his voice calling out, his eyes filled with trust. I woke with tears, knowing he had believed in Ashley, never suspecting the betrayal that awaited him. Those memories were painful, but they also fueled my resolve to protect Isabella and honor Matthew's legacy. One evening, Isabella sat beside me with the mint green blanket folded across her lap. She asked, "Grandma, why do you keep this blanket so carefully?" I smiled softly. "Because it's special. Your father loved it. He said it was magical, that it made you stop crying when you were a baby." She giggled, wrapping herself in it. For her, it was comfort. For me, it was the thread that had unraveled Ashley's lies and revealed the truth. I continued writing in my journal, recording every detail of the story: the blanket, the phone, the discovery, the trial, and the custody battle. I wanted Isabella to have the truth when she was older, not just through my words, but through a record she could read herself. She deserved to know about her father's love, about Lydia's sacrifice, and about the fight for justice. The community supported us, offering kindness and encouragement. Neighbors admired Isabella's resilience, and many told me I was strong. But I didn't feel strong. I felt like a mother who had lost her son and a grandmother who had fought desperately to protect her granddaughter. Strength, I realized, was not about feeling brave. It was about refusing to give up. As time passed, the shadow of Ashley's betrayal began to fade. Isabella's laughter grew louder, her steps stronger, her future brighter. She was no longer defined by Ashley's lies. She was defined by Matthew's love, Lydia's sacrifice, and the truth we had fought to uncover. One day, as I watched Isabella play in the garden, I felt a sense of peace. The blanket lay folded on the porch, its stitches worn but intact. It had carried secrets, revealed betrayals, and led us to justice. Now it carried hope. The blanket had once been a symbol of love, then a vessel of secrets, and finally the key to justice. Ashley's lies had collapsed, Hugh's guilt had been exposed, and Isabella's future was safe. The storm was over, and though scars remained, love had triumphed over betrayal. The blanket had carried secrets, the phone had exposed betrayal, and the trial had delivered justice. But the true ending was not Ashley's downfall. It was Isabella's laughter echoing through the house, proof that love had survived the storm. Because in the end, the greatest victory was not uncovering lies, but protecting innocence. The lies are buried, the guilty are gone, but the child of truth now carries the legacy of love, and her laughter is louder than Ashley's silence.